vision, he got 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 with the trick, bitch. Windows tinted like how black my skin is. Scoop the shorty in it from a Jake. Swish, he got bitches, 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 he got bitches. Hold up with it, got my back on pippin', bitch. I'm back in kitchens with the tray, bitch. Windows tinted like how black my skin is. Scoop the shorty in it from a Jake. Swish, she got bitches, he got bitches, he got.
All throughout history, the term stoner has been used a lot. In common usage, it refers to the guilty, the derelict, and the unsavory. The Oxford Dictionary redefines stoned as a state where you have lost your ability to behave or think normally caused by a drug like marijuana or alcohol. I find that to be unacceptable. Welcome to the Daily Chronicles. Here we talk to different types of stoners from all walks of life. So roll up, load up your bongs, ready up that dab, and tune in as we speak the truth about the stigma. This is the Daily Chronicles.
What's up, my tokers, jokers, and smokers? Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Chronicles, y'all. Listen, Red Center Farm is here. I got Red and Becca in the fucking studio. I'm not even gonna. Oh my God, welcome to the show, yo. I'm sorry. Listen, we had a little bit of a talk in the green room. Your boy brought some questions. I was absolutely blown the fuck away by the responses and just the sheer generosity just poured out, oh my God. Holy shit, y'all. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be on the show. I really appreciate the invite and having us on. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Dude, I had to, bro. Like, y'all motherfuckers became iconic overnight.
I've got one rolled up and ready to go.
Get after it, then.
Nothing huge, but this is a hand roll, of course. And of course, we don't have any tips in the building, so just a good old fashioned doobie today. This is lemon dozy dough, I think is what I mixed with a little bit of flow. We're gonna have ourselves. This is our wake and bake smoke. Good for the show. It's good show smoke.
Hell yeah. Well, dude, it's great, and it's funny because I love lemon. Like, give me a second. Like, what is it? I'm really, really baked off edibles right now, so bear with me. It's Super Lemon Haze. I love that, and I love Dozy Dough. Those two are my absolute favorites. So if you have something that's like those two had a fucking love child.
Not so hazy, but
Okay.
It's not very hazy.
the lemon side of it comes out pretty strong.
Yeah.
There's both sides to it, which, sometimes
gas
the
side.
hazy, the lemon terpenes can give you anxiety with a sativa, and so what I like so much about lemon Dozy-Do is that the Dozy-Do brings it down a little bit. So it's way more relaxed. And I can smoke it any time of the day and have like no anxiety, no issues. Just a really good relaxation.
Does it have that like classic Dozy-Do smell to it? You know what I mean, right?
It's in an undertone. It's in the flavor. It's kind of gassy. It's got a little bit of gassy. Yeah. But it's pungent lemon. It's like lemon peel, man. It's very much if you don't like citrus cannabis, it's not your thing at all. It's not one of those subtle lemons, like it's punching you in the face. Now the flow is subtle lemon. It's a little more like a lemon head, rather than like full blown lemon pledge, so like the lemon head where it's like you don't really see, literally you smell it on the candy. It's very subtle, and then when you taste it, you don't really smell it that much, but it's more in the flavor,
Right.
Whereas this is not only in the flavor, it's like zest in the eye.
Oh yeah, it's all there. Damn. So just from hearing the way that you described that, okay, A, your boy's sold, so we're gonna have to meet up sooner than later. So just know that.
Yeah.
B,
Sure. Very happy to share.
since established 2008, Red Cider Farms, this blows my mind because this is the epitome. This is what we stand for in Michigan. Your story is one of those. This is what you would expect to hear, having known what's going on in cannabis since 2008. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I was cultivating, learning to cultivate. Mm-hmm. I was barely cultivating. And to be honest, most of my, let's say, caregiving was going through more or less being a patient myself. I was just kind of a patient. I would buy in bulk, and then I would share my supply with other patients, and we would kind of work that way. It wasn't for a couple of years, let's say 2012, 13. I was growing. I had learned to grow. I had grown a few plants in like the 08, 09 range, but I didn't really start growing until 2013, 2004.
Okay.
And that's when I started sort of beginning to establish a little bit of a genetic stock. Some of the ones that are on there now, I would say what kept me in and made me realize the medicinal side of cannabis, because before let's say 08, 09, a bag of weed was a bag of weed to me. I was smoking brick weed. I was picking seeds. Most of my shit had a whole bunch of stems in it.
Envelopes and magazines.
Oh yeah. And I didn't really care. And for me, like, all of the different strains at a dispensary was like, just pick something for me, bud tender. There's too much decisions. I don't have a palate for cannabis. I just want to get high. I just want to smoke something. And that was me at this, 08, 09, whatever. I then found out that my neighbor, while I was not living at home anymore, my parents' neighbor was also a patient, and he needed a caregiver, and I was able to source through some buddies some pretty good product, and specifically he was looking for Purple Kush. Mm-hmm. They had a Granddaddy Purple, they had a Las Vegas Purple Kush, they had a Purple Urkel, and they had all of these very similar genetic lines where, and the reason that he needed Purple Kush was he had like something with his eyes where he would have muscle spasms in his eyes. And some strains of cannabis, sativa, maybe a hybrid even, they would make it worse. It just wouldn't help the condition. He'd smoke himself some good heavy indica or something with a lot of myrcene, something heavy purple, funky, a little bit of gas, and he could relax. He could see, he could drive, he could do all the things that he needed to do. And that's when I was like, oh, so there's something to these different strains. This one's not working. This one. So I started, I was figuring out I heard the difference between a sativa and an indica, broadleaf, narrowleaf, and all. But the amount of information on terpenes was so few and far between. I didn't know to look into aromatherapy. I didn't know there was a crossover between aromatherapy. I didn't know there was a crossover between aromatherapy in the gut biome. I mean, a lot of this stuff is new information anyway. So, and then bringing cannabis into it, it just led me into like this whole downward spiral, rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole of learning how to not just evolve the plant, medicine, health, all this stuff. It evolved myself and a lot of other things, So like, I'm very
you grew alongside it.
Along it, yeah. Exactly. But that was my epiphany moment. Was that patient, and he became my first patient, and he became a patient of mine in like 2012. As somebody, as like a registered patient through the state of Michigan, and I was his caregiver. And at that time, I was starting to grow independently here at home. And we're in the Washtenaw County area, where laws have always been very friendly for us. Okay. It's kind of where I came. I settled here.
So I've heard.
Washtenaw County, specifically for cannabis. And then from there kind of continued to evolve within the laws here. Now getting into caregiver laws, they would allow me to grow my plants, but as I wanted to expand as a caregiver, they actually needed commercial zoning and some other things like that. So lo and behold, the township that I was in, I wasn't actually able to grow my 72. I could grow 12, and then I could maybe grow another 12 when rec came through, and skate those lines if I was, to dare so. But I had to actually outsource and find a different property in order to grow my 72. I was able to find a property back in like 2015 before the MMFLA. This is pre-medical licensing act of Michigan. This is just as, there was a little bit of wind on it. And I was like, well, I'm going to get ahead of this curve. I'm going to find some commercial property so that I can continue to, have my stuff and my products and provisioning centers. The way that, we were kind of just working through a gray caregiver to caregiver networking, caregiver co-op networking and things like that before. I was hoping to actually be able to do this a little bit more legit, have something a little bit more on paper. And so I was like, okay, so I found a property, commercial property in the Irish Hills area where there was no caregiver zoning. There was nothing, it was great. We were free to just, they wanted a operator's permit and they wanted some restrictions and things like that. So I kind of slid under their radar with, permits and some stuff like that because there was they did not want to opt into the MMFLA when it came around. When it ended up coming around to it, I guess we can fast forward a little bit. They didn't want to opt in. I had already purchased the property. I was already building. I was already doing the thing. They didn't want to opt into the MMFLA. So for me, it was just a workspace. I didn't want them coming. I didn't want them. I know what ends up happening. You know what? They end up nickel and diming you with red tape until you just can't operate. So I have remained as with discretion as much as I can, have been able to, because it's just the way that it's been needed to. And ever since Prop 1 came through, you guys want to opt in? No, they opted out of Prop 1. They won't opt in any of those programs. So I was able to remain a caregiver without issue up until the recent, let's say, year, when we'll probably get into it a little bit, but a whole bunch of talk started going around from community to community to community to community. And all of a sudden, my community, who they had never wanted to even mess with caregivers at all. I had talked to them about the caregiver thing, make sure they weren't going to mess with caregivers. We don't care about caregivers. In fact, we're afraid of caregivers. They were afraid of getting lawsuits from caregivers. They don't want to mess with caregivers, right? And all of a sudden, they impose a big old ordinance saying the caregivers have to be on 5 acres of property. They have to live on their property. They can't allow, the patients can't even pick up from them, or they can't be inside the residence. They can't, nobody under the age of 18 can be a patient, which it doesn't make sense. And like just all of these challengeable stipulations, and that was within the last year. They've kind of just outzoned us outright altogether. So we're officially, doing this whole thing, as we can legally through Washtenaw County. But as far as the growing thing, it's just, we have to do the old discretion thing again. Mm-hmm. It's a shame because we are more than willing to pay to play.
To do what you need to do to make it happen, right?
The problem lies, and we're in an agricultural district. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's no reason if the state were to step in and say, and like actually look at the situation, they would say, why is this company not allowed to be there? There's corn across the street from us spraying glyphosate in the air, all
kinds of bullshit.
Yeah, dude. Like there's in the groundwater, our aquifer's destroyed. Like why do they care? We're a little small property. So we're just continuing to do the good fight with community. That's our big thing. We're continuing to do things like making pet-friendly CBD oil.
Look at that.
We have pets. We usually have our labeling. This is our human CBD oil.
Ooh.
We do 1,100 milligrams. We want to make sure that we're just a step above some of the other products out there. A lot of them max out at 1,000 milligrams. There's not really a limitation for CBD on the shelf, so we step it up a little bit. We got all of our stuff tested. This actually has 1153, but we're just marketing it at 11. So we're keeping that recipe, and then we half that recipe for the dogs. So the dogs like 550 in there. And
Speaking of products, you got more than that.
Yes, yeah.
You got flour. You got the Fico.
There is the Fico.
Hash, bubble hash.
Bubble hash. I wish I had some bubble hash to show you at the moment, but I'm going to show you the Fico.
And the creme de la creme, the piece de resistance. There's a Fico. Your setter sticks.
Setter sticks.
Now, what is a setter stick, pray tell?
Becca is to thank for the handling and all of the packing of the setter sticks. The setter stick is...
He can't quite do it. He fumbles it a little bit.
I tear the papers. Like, it's rough, man. I can smoke, but like, she'll use a little 6-shooter. Like, and that's another thing. We were kind of talking in the green room a little bit about our process. And that's another thing that we try to do is for quality control, we kind of keep our processes small. So rather than using like a bump box of 30 or 50, we're using 6-shooters. We're gonna do 6 at a time. Yeah, is it like not effective as far as like time goes? No, but we're also not a very large scale. We're not selling hundreds of these a day. It's not one of these things. This is a thing.
Artisanal as it fucking gets, man.
And it's a premium product that's only available when we're around doing events and shows. They are available for ordering through our patients and through our consulting, things like that. But as far as like, us just having them on the whim, no, these are strictly made to order. These are made like for right before an event. So it's always, fresh, like what we were talking, popcorn, flour. We don't use trim, shake, or anything like that. We have yet to do something of a hybrid, like adding some sort of keef or hash or anything like that to it, but that's always in the future. But what was not on the website that we also offer as far as the setter stick goes is we have a setter stick blunt. We were also talking group. I quit nicotine 6 years ago. I quit cigarettes 6 years ago. And with that, I kind of have a strict, no nicotine relationship that I've been trying to just kind of discipline myself with. I'm sure one day I'll grow my own tobacco and maybe,
venture forth back, if you will.
Something like that. I don't have anything against nicotine. It's just for myself and a disciplinary reason. I'm going to get at least a good decade out of it, right? So that being said, I found a nicotine-free blunt that's actually made by Futurola. We were kind of talking how our setter sticks we use the rice paper
elements,
paper. Now this is a Futurola, and I typically don't favor Futurola papers, but I like their blunt, which is some sort of like a gum tree or a gum plant cellulose leaf that's kind of been probably processed of some sort, but it's nicotine free and actually has almost like a Dutch master, like a Dutchy type of a flavor to it. It's really good, man. And if you pair it right, let's say with something a little gassy or something with a nice musk, like a heavy purple, it's got a heavy myrcene or something in it, it really has a beautiful companion flavor. I really like, and so that's the Futurola blunt. So we also offer those, and we selectively offer those in only a couple strains, specifically like strawberries and cream, granddaddy purple, maybe like gorilla breath. Yeah, so like a couple of these ones that have chocolatey, maybe little grapey, fruity notes in them to kind of pair with that blunt type of flavor. But it's nicotine free, because I'm not one to break open a backwood, for example. That actually was. And it's only been like maybe half a dozen times that I think I've smoked blunts in the last, like actual nicotine blunts in the last maybe 6 years. So I really like those products. But the setter sticks, Becca is definitely to thank for all of the production of those things.
They're dope, by the way. Shout out Becca. They're amazing.
Huge shout out to her.
There's some technique.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I've noticed a lot of keywords that I want to hear when asking people why and how, and more specifically talking about cannabis. I've noticed that it's a very, I would go as far as to say, a diversified genetic library. It's you're able to, like you said, you only use specific strains to make these blunts. You do them for a reason. You only use element papers, man. Everything that you're doing screams fucking by hand and artisanal. It's just, dude, kudos to that. Nobody does shit by hand anymore. You know what I'm saying? That's dope to know. That's literally it. Then we talked a little bit about the caregiver group, how you were, hooking people up, like patients with caregivers and people that need healing, basically. That's amazing itself. My question is this. So with, genetics and breeders, a lot of people may not, they might shy away from those words. They may not know what they're listening for or anything. They may be new. I don't know fuck all about genetics and breeders. I know genetics are certain types of strains. I don't know what a breeder has to do. I'm, very curious about it. I don't think that I'm going to get all of my questions answered today, but we got a few for you. So a credible breeder, what is a credible breeder? Can you just feel yeah, dude, no, I know him, he's cool? Or is there a process or how do you become a credible breeder?
I think a lot of it is, is there any confirmed or let's say, is there any type of a objective downside or a negative value or something to the breeder, right? Is somebody pushing genetics that are known to harm? Is somebody pushing genetics that are, let's say, known just to not germinate, be premature seeds? Now some of it is through listening to other people's that's not my joint that I just dropped. Is listening to, let's say, different podcasts and things like that, and hearing about other people's experiences with genetics. Some of it is through the community and hearing people's experiences with genetics. And a lot of times if breeders if sometimes people, I will take hermaphroditic genetics and some other things when I'm listening to other people tell me about them with a grain of salt, because I don't know the conditions that they're sprouting the seeds. I don't know the conditions of their room or anything like that. It's very few growers that I will like wholeheartedly trust their all of what they tell. I mean, by few, that's a big number, but still, it's not everybody. It's not all of Reddit. It's not all of every blog out there that I'm going to read about, a sour diesel from such breeder. And so I like to maybe get a pack for myself, experiment, experience,
pop a bean, see what you see.
Seeds, see what ends up happening. Most of our stock has been given and gifted.
Okay.
A lot of seeds that I've gone through, a lot of packs that I've popped have just been no-goes. I've gone through them, and there might be some good genetics in there, but just not what I consider overall. Is it going to stand the test of time? I've had stuff stick around for a year.
Speaking of standing the test of time, y'all just tied the knot, did you not?
We tied an engagement. Yeah. We did.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. We got engaged.
I didn't mean to jump the gun a little bit too soon there. Sorry.
Totally cool. We got engaged in the beginning of the summer, and we finally had a little engagement party, and we did almost elope. That almost happened. That's
a secret.
Well,
I already ruined it anyway, so it really don't matter.
Tell somebody, I suppose.
Tell somebody.
A couple weeks ago, just because we were.
Because why not?
Might have to, boogie out of this house and buy other land. We're back and forth with trying to venture into a larger property, so we put a little bid on some property and didn't get it, of course, just because the universe isn't ready for us to sell this house. It's way too much to do. But yeah, man, we are tying the knot sometime soon. We're definitely a dynamic duo.
We already have a honeymoon set.
What?
Well, so we have to.
Yeah, we're kind of thinking before that. We had a date. Tell them when the date was. It's supposed to be.
August 19th is like.
Just after sunflower blooms. We're here in our yard, have the ceremony, our vows and everything here. I built an arbor out back for that and some other stuff. But, things change. So we might either have our honeymoon before our wedding, or we're going to elope sometime before our honeymoon. And the honeymoon, tell them what honeymoon is.
We're going to Colorado, and we're going to see Dead and Company for 3 nights. We're going to drive there and stay in the Rocky Mountains for a couple nights, and then 3 nights of shows. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be a blast.
I becoming a grower over the I don't know, close to last decade. Yeah, last decade, I've sort of become isolated a little bit with these plants, and in that isolation, I've become quite a big Deadhead, man. I listened to a ton of Grateful Dead, a ton of rock and roll. I was always a classic rock and roll head type of dude, Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, The Beatles, and all that stuff. I'd write book reports on the Beatles and shit, man. But I got into the Grateful Dead as a fucking grower and just like jamming out in my grow room and stuff. And I vibe to it with the plants. And it helps out, my state of let's say anxiety and shit like that a lot. It has just the right type of melody and tempo that it's not too fast and gets me going too much. So it's something perfect for getting work done. And so we're gonna go catch them on that. So yeah, but anyways, man.
Yeah, dude, I'm with it. Fucking
the genetics, incredible breeders. I don't want to go too far off the topic.
Sure, all right. Sorry, ADD happens.
Genetics I've experienced in the past, right? And if somebody might be working with that, for example, I know a local breeder or Detroit. No, let's see here. The local breeder is Greenfish Seeds, and he's working with some really good genetics, like an East Coast Sour Diesel, for example, that I know is true to be East Coast Sour Diesel because it's stock that I used to give to my patients, almost a decade ago. So I know that this East Coast Sour Diesel is true to their genetics. So it would be another, I guess, objective sort of reasoning for me to consider working with a genetic line to try to, pluck maybe something. And I tried to look with what like the female might be. I know that there's a male usually involved, but my hunt is usually towards like the female leaner. There's usually not something that I'm looking for is like a hybrid of two genetics. I'm usually trying to find something within a genetic, and then
you've gotten a couple of our best strains from hunts you did.
Rainbow Driver was a hunt that I did. That is Archive, and Fletcher from Archive has a very good reputation of using really good heirloom genetics. And that's why I prefer to kind of use a couple of those breeders. There are some like heavy F1 breeders that I've used, like Canorado and some things like that, that I have gotten some good stuff. But again, those are, if you look at their lineup a lot of times, and there's like, 3 dozen strains on a drop, a lot of those are F1s. I don't want to connotate like pollen chucking or anything as a bad thing. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. In Canorado's case, it's usually a good thing because they're working with good genetics. So I'd say that for them, I mean, if it's they have, reputable genetics that they're working with, but in the fact that there's a ton of F1s out there, it could also be a crapshoot on which one to kind of shoot for. So I also like to look for even reputable breeders that only have limited drops. Exotic, they get up there, but Exotic works with a lot of really good genetics as well, and proven through just, everybody that I've ever seen with something that has something by Exotic is good, not just in like the way it looks, but in the way it smokes. The Strawberries and Cream that I got was really good. That's definitely one of the more popular ones. Those heavy myrcene genetics, the musk on it is not my go-to. I don't like it, right? The
super sedated.
Yeah. The fruits, as much as I love the flavor on those, they can be a little harsh. There's something about, I don't know, in the myrcene or something. And maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just something that I keep going to, thinking that it is. But it's just because I get super narcotic from those, right? They just make me really sleepy. But it could also be many others, right? It could be a little, could be lavender, right? That might be making it a little harsh. But Granddaddy Purple, that's a purple that I can smoke. It's smooth. And that was a gift from me, from actually the same family that is Greenfish Seeds. It was his brother, and then he's not around anymore. And I also got the Flow. I got both Flow and Granddaddy through a friend that was working with their stock. So a third party acquired these genetics, but they had these genetics for years and years and years. According to the original grower of them, the Granddaddy Purple wasn't Ken's Granddaddy Purple. He didn't exactly say where he got the Granddaddy Purple. My theory is he got it somewhere deadlot-ish, like great lot style, maybe through that network or through the Cali network or something, because it's just something in the air at those shows, man. It's this Bubba. You smell the Bubba Kush, you smell that Granddaddy Purple. It's in the air, and I don't know if it's just old Deadhead stock or something that's out there, but it might be that old Mendo, maybe that old Mendo Purple or something is that old Deadhead stock or something like that. But it's definitely got the Bubba, Kush type fragrance with a little bit of gas.
Speaking of all things Deadhead, okay, I was strumming through the website. Who is to blame for the heady gallery?
It's kind of
baby is that?
Yeah, that's a little bit. Well, okay, so Becca is the website altogether. So the gallery is
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Becca's baby. Now, in part of like our collection, that goes to like both of us. You know, we pick off of each other's interests, and then we kind of go into what we might want to use for. That stuff is basically us reselling other people's artwork. Like all of that stuff is available. Everything on our Heady gallery is available. You just have to reach out to us and ask about, how much price it is, how much prices are. We just don't have e-commerce or anything like that set up. So we do everything just
Old school.
Yeah. And what we like about it is that it's like a virtual like art gallery, right? While it's on display, it's there to view, and then and when it's gone, it no longer is there to view, as if it were on displayed here on the walls and stuff like that. Unfortunately, we just can't have people coming and going and checking out our art here. We just don't have a storefront like that right now. So we use it online, and that Heady Art Gallery is mostly, let's just say it's regional. It's regional so that all of the artists, if we really needed to, we could probably drive to go see them, maybe to get something repaired or something, because we really like glass. A lot of it is glasswork stuff. And not just like, and I don't mean rig, I don't mean functional glass. I mean pendants, stained glass. We have these really cool hash domes that it's a functional glass, but it's a little bit more of like a mid-century modern, almost like a steampunk-esque. Here, I'll show you one hash device right here.
Oh, that's dope as hell.
And by regional, most of our artists are Michigan. This artist is, and these are available through us as well. So we got these ones. That's actually etched for us.
That's sweet.
It's like a walnut base. There's a nail to set temple ball or your bubble hash on. Get that sucker fired up, and then you can set the globe on there and let it fill with smoke. This might be stuck. This comes out and allows you.
That's so cool.
You kind of tip it and control the airflow.
Right.
But if you need to, the air goes underneath the globe just fine. It has a nice little cap, and you can let it fill. So it's very similar to, using hot knives or something, and you have a little cup and a straw and trying to use that method.
That's way cooler.
Yeah.
That is so much cooler.
Tea kettles, Remo. Shout out to Remo. He's a cannabis YouTuber dude. He's a hash guy too. He has this really cool hash kettle. So there's a couple really cool like hash devices, but this is by far the one that I like. And honestly, man, I can just sit back and just
be laying in bed,
smoke, and nothing goes to waste. It just, you get all your hash. It's great. So we have these guys available. We have pendants locally made by Diligent Glass, and we're trying to work with other artists. And those are stuff that we just kind of like bought a collection from him, and then we bought a collection from Tube Socks. Actually, she created these flower glass, stained glass cannabis leaf and cannabis flowers specifically for us. And so we can, reuse that design when we need to, but we have like an 8-pack of those or something like that. Those are all on the website. So, we're really, really happy and just fortunate to be able to just, in our minds, like it's sort of like a collaboration with these artists. We're not using any of our stuff with them, but we're linking up and we're supporting. It's okay to support these artists. There we go. I'd rather just say that we're not really collaborating, but we are supporting them. We're definitely putting their names out, helping put their names out there, trying to give them as much support as we can. Just I also make little pendants. I do little hand painted stuff like that. I'm not sure if those are on the website. I don't think those are on the website right now, but those are always on display at our shows when we're there. So we try to do as much as handcrafting type stuff as possible. We have magic wands and walking sticks coming next summer. I've got a handful of, we're actually making walking sticks from sunflowers. And then magic wands and things like that. Mainly, man, her brother's really into Harry Potter, and I've seen they're a popular item, and so it's kind of another one of those crafty things that we're going to be getting just out of everything. We made one out of a root that we pulled from the Appalachian Trail this past summer when we did actually get engaged. So it's something that you can kind of like put a piece of biological material, a stick, right? It's a question for this. This is a stick off the Trail of Tears. So there's
a special stick.
Yeah, it's a special stick. And this is actually like a bit of a root. We didn't go digging or break. This is all deadfall. This is just a stick down there, but did a little wrap job and a crystal job on there, but. Yeah, so little things like that we like to, and there's actually some crystals inlaid in the epoxy and stuff, and just some stuff like that. I like to be crafty and try to utilize as much of the resources that we just kind of have around us, because there is just so much around us. We just spent a butt ton of money to build a chicken coop, just because we just don't have enough natural resources around us. But if we did, we could. But just little things like that, just make like a memento, rather than buying something from a souvenir shop or something like that, make a Christmas ornament or something off a stick off the ground or something like that. Be able to take that $10 and save it for some garden equipment or something, or invest it. It's kind of what we're trying to do. So all of our savings and stuff just keeps going back into the gardens, into learning, infrastructure, like I said, chickens, right? So we're using our gift money from our engagement to kind of go and close a loop. We're trying to close this loop because all of our outdoor cannabis is organic. We don't use any pesticide. Well, even our indoor, we don't use any chemicals on our indoor, but our outdoor, we don't spray anything in our yard. Not even organic sprays, right? We just don't spray anything. It's complete. The idea is permaculture. The idea is complete closed loop systems where we don't need to bring in anything, and that includes any type of chemicals, whether they be organic or not, or deemed organic or not. So we do things like, we grow a diverse population of plants, and we're bringing in chickens to help compost a lot of this stuff and turn a lot of this biomass, just speed up the process. And as well, another closed loop, feed us a little bit of protein on the side, because we're going to get some egg layers. Chickens are going to go through and they're going to work our beds for us. And they're going to be just one more, biodynamic resource that we have in our garden back there, so that when we grow our medicine next year, it's that much more valuable for the patients. Because what we have going on with all of our stock this year is it's being turned into organic seed stock. We pollinated our garden every third year. I like to pollinate, get some seed for a couple of reasons. I love to give seeds away. They are available on our website. Also, they're available when we're at booths and things, but I also love to give seeds away. So I try to grow some seeds every so often. I like to eat some seeds every now and then. We have some hemp out there growing. Those are pollinated. We'll eat those seeds. We'll also grow more hemp next season. Like I said, with the CBD, we like full spectrum. But yeah, it's all organic back there. Now, our indoor is, people call that synthetic. It's hydroponic, whatever you want to call it. Drip to waste, drain to waste, flood to waste. We do not waste is kind of one of our things, though. Indoor, we are feeding our plants a hydroponic nutrient solution that is actually hydrated by us. It's a dry powder that we add water to. So we're not buying any water. We're not shipping any water. We're buying the pure minerals. They are water soluble. And then we feed them to the plant, not at a high fertigation rate like a lot of all other cultivators will do, and then drain it out the bottom. We actually feed it at a very low fertigation, like for those that are familiar with cultivation language, 1EC, 1.0 on the continuity of basically how many minerals are in there, and that's about probably a third of what other growers will do. Some growers will double that. I'd say the average, most growers will kind of double that number, and then there are some growers that will probably triple that number and go like 3 to even 4.0 EC. But they are, to attain those numbers, you have to be a little bit wasteful. So my theory is let it all build up in the pot, right? Don't waste anything at the bottom. And then when needed and necessary, lower that EC down and let them, consume what's in the pot. And so I'm never actually feeding through, flooding out, wasting until it's, the plant starts to kind of die off at the end. The plant will slow down and eventually a little bit of waste will come out the bottom, and I'll start, flushing, if you will. I'll lower my EC down. I'll take away my my mineral salts, and I'll let the plant just kind of naturally just take in some water and just use up whatever's remaining in the pot there. And a little bit will come out the bottom, and we might have to dump, let's say, 5 to 10 gallons worth of water per run, which is we're at a decent scale, so it's it works out really good. That would be us to be able to run, let's say, like a class A grow or, anything like that. I think that we could do very, very minimal runoff to waste, upwards of far less than, 10, 15, 20 gallons, very easy if we had a couple hundred plants to work with. So that's the, lowering our carbon footprint a little bit, trying to do that, trying to be mindful of what's going into our well, into our ground, back into our water tank, back into our aquifer. Being mindful of that. Our composted materials from our indoor grow all gets composted here, and we close that loop, and that all gets made and then recycled back into our food, vegetable, and outdoor medicinal cannabis garden. We close those, all the stems, stalks, root balls, everything, cocoa, everything gets recomposted. So yeah, a big focus is closing loops. A big focus is trying to do things as sustainably as possible. With the indoor space, it ends up being quite a bit cheaper, not having to buy a bunch of amendment. Like the fertigation I use is incredibly cheap per gallon of water that I use, like pennies on the gallon, if that, fractions of pennies on the gallon. And I'm able to use a couple $100 will take me years. You know what I mean? Where a couple $100, if I were to continuously have to buy amendments for organics and stuff like that indoors, that cost would go to my patients. You know what I mean? It wouldn't just eat out of our profits and stuff. It would actually we would have to charge more for our cannabis. So this is just a way that we're able to keep up with the Joneses, I guess, keep up with the competition.
If you will, right.
And maintain because it all came from stemming in our area where I said before, Washtenaw County. It has been saturated, not just since, cannabis was legal. It's been saturated since forever, dude. It's in most of these areas, cannabis was never actually illegal. It's been decriminalized in Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor and a couple of these other townships for decades, forever, so there's always been relaxed laws. The dispensaries have been around, dozens of them, and so prices have always been low. To have a $200 or a $300 ounce 5-6 years ago in my area was crazy, dude. You weren't making any, you weren't selling it, you were sitting on it. So my numbers have always been moderate, low scale. And now, today it's considered high, but for me, that's always been low. You know what I mean? It's always been affordable for the patients because I'm able to do it this way. I'm also not under the sunlight indoor. I have a couple of philosophies about I'm not grounded. I'm closed off. I'm in insulated walls, and not just insulated walls. I actually have infrared barriers to minimize the sun reflection and stuff like that, ensure more insulation, R value, and that alone, there's no connection that these plants have with the outside world. There's no connection that these plants have with nature. They do not see the sun; they see artificial light. So I feed them the sterile nutrients in that respect. And
speaking of a connection to nature,
yeah, go ahead.
I want to talk about, and I've been, I'm waiting for this question, and this is something that I'm just turning into. Polarity science.
Yeah.
Polarity science. So I was told by Skilbo of the MBGS, shout out Michigan Bros Grow Show, right?
Because I'd like to give those guys, if you don't mind, real fast.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, listen, we wouldn't be here without them. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I would not be here without those guys. I don't even know if I would be where I'm at in the cannabis industry or anything like that without those guys, and without the networking and without the community. It would be very, very different. And the way that the cannabis market is today, I'm unsure if that's where I would even be. And that's the only place that I can be. Cannabis is honestly, that's all I know, man. I've told you what I've been doing for the last 25 years, dude. I mean, I'm in this to do, I'm in it for the long haul. So
and to win it.
I have to make it work. And that's kind of what we're doing. We have to make it work one way or another. So
sounds like it's working to me.
Shout out to those guys, big time. So thank you very much for letting me put that in. Sorry, dude, that dab got me for a second.
Some water.
Anyway,
you're all right.
What were you going to ask about polarity?
So polarity science, Skilbo told me to check it out. I guess walking with mycelium again, you know what I'm saying? Like I was doing microdosing, back to that. Now it's where I want to continue my microdose and then work up into a recreational dose type of thing.
Sure.
I want to push my state of consciousness, and we'll get there. But I was told that polarity science is the fucking bee's knees. I told it was the place to be.
I love that, it's a safe space for people like Skilbo, myself, even Becca and Abolish, the four of us, and then anybody really who we have come on, because most people have kind of had this looming fear about discussing these topics openly. That channel was created so that we wouldn't shut down the MBGS channel for discussing for having taboo conversations about those topics. And I was like, well, I'll create a channel that will be like, and honestly, I had a kind of a passion project in my mind that I've always wanted to do. Sorry. I've been following.
Dabble, do you?
Oh, dude, it got me good. It was good. I've been following like Psych Substance, and like what would it be, like, let's just say listening to people like Terrence McKenna and following people like MAPS, the MAPS program, Multidisciplinary Association Psychedelic Studies, and listening to people like James Fadiman and Hamilton Morris. And some of the, but long ago it was like James Fadiman, and like he was the one kind of talking about microdosing back in like 2000, maybe 14, 13 even. And for me, I was having experiences microdosing even before that. Like I was taking small doses of blotter paper, like quarter, eighth doses, things like that. Just to kind of like act as like a focus mechanism, act as act as like more of like a antidepressant or a relaxant, and not as a psychoactive. I was experimenting with that back in like 2009, 2010, and it was working. And then I took 2 doses of some blotter that, for lack of better words, blew my mind. Like way too psychoactive. And I was like, this isn't acid, this isn't, or at least the LSD or what I thought was LSD or whatever it was I was taking and consuming at the time. come to find out, I ended up learning through like Substance and a couple of these other, dance safe organization, Bunk Police, a couple of these other groups that were doing videos, that, it's not just LSD that's out there. There's like thousands of psychoactive substances and hundreds of them can fit on blotter paper. And like, you have no idea. It's a shot at the dartboard and you're so unlikely to hit a bullseye, at what you're taking. And so I got myself a test reagent and I went through and I started testing a little stash that I had, stocked up and saved up over the course of a few years. And sure enough, dude, like 90% of it was fake. It was, something else like 2CI or like, other chemicals that somebody else might find worthwhile. But for me, it wasn't having it because I had that bad trip and I have no idea what it was. And I don't want to go back to that. It wasn't just a bad trip. It was way far overwhelming, way too psychoactive of a place. The visuals were just far too electronic, it just wasn't, it was brain zappy, it wasn't fun, it was way too electronic, it wasn't natural. Not like LSD can be very natural feeling, similar to mushrooms and DMT. I've never actually done DMT, but from my understanding is they're all in the same category of tryptamine-based natural entheogens, whereas some of those other compounds, even mescaline, which is a natural entheogen, are phenethylamines, which make them a little bit more like a stimulant, or a little bit. They play upon a different. They play upon your dopamine and serotonin receptors ever so slightly different, that it can make them challenging and overwhelming. So. To with caution, and if you don't know what you took and you don't know your dose, it's a crapshoot, and you setting settings off, there you are. You have to hold on for the ride. You can't puke this stuff up. That's the thing. You gotta ride it out or take a medication or something that most people don't have. So I got into this harm reduction side of things because of my own personal experience. The mushroom thing, mushrooms started getting popular. More people started talking about microdosing, the Fadiman regimen, and then Paul Stamets and the Fantastic Fungi in the last couple of years became really popular. And now it's like, well, we're in the future. Like you say, so like me and Becca joke about the old South Park episode from last year. People are like, we're in the future. This is the future. And like, this is the future. This is already a couple years past. We're already post Fantastic Fungi. We're already post like way long ago with the Fadiman talking about microdosing. Like we're there. Like now pharmaceutical companies are trying to get involved with this, which it's a completely different story. And I don't want to talk to you. I don't even want to into the game. I love that we have the ability to work with these naturally on our own. But with the mushrooms becoming popular, it almost like seemed like this is a renaissance. And I've seen the word used a lot, psychedelic renaissance again, bringing back the 60s and all this other stuff. Well, what went on in the 60s and even before that was a lot of research. And so if we are having this new renaissance, then there needs to be a lot more research. And so that was kind of another epiphany that I was like, well, we need to talk more about we need to have more of these conversations because people don't understand what needs to be researched. I don't know how to do the research. I'm not a scientist. So like we need to get the conversation rolling, so talk about bad trips, talk about, all these different plethoras of chemicals, and whatever we can and things like that. And then because of the whole mushroom thing, now everybody's thinking, well, you can just grab some mushrooms off the table and eat them if they're psychoactive. I actually had kind of a traumatizing experience when I was 12. I was 12 years old. My cousin was 15 years old. He bought like a quarter ounce of mushroom to eighth or whatever off some other kids, probably same age kid, I'm sure. Context, they lived in like the Sarasota, Tampa area, in that, Gulf side of the state area, down middle of the state, Gulf side of the state. He and some buddies consumed the mushrooms he eats like the whole bag. You know, a couple of his buddies might eat a cap or something. They don't trip, dude. Nobody trips. Nobody feels anything, or at least not much of anything. Maybe placebo or whatever. They all get sick, dude. They all get a little bit of sick. My cousin ends up getting the worst of it, loses his liver at 15 years old, goes into a 9-day coma. This is off, you know, eating mushrooms, or what he thinks is just eating mushrooms, you know. They were poisonous mushrooms. They weren't legit mushrooms, you know. So the knowledge should need to be able to identify mushrooms so that you can prevent yourself from having a Mercedes scar like he does. And then it wasn't just the liver. It was the being exposed to Oxycontin at the age of, 15, 16, prescribed all just kinds of fucking pain, not just pain medication, but just fucking injection medication, which you need medication. And the whole loop of it, man, just got him really, really into the whole pills, the pharmaceutical system, and then into not being able to get pharmaceuticals because the scripts were up, to go into the streets, and became a opium addict not long after that. The dude's doing great. He has 2 beautiful kids, man. One of my favorite people on this earth, and I will forever support him. But it was definitely just one of those things that, was like, wow, that experience 20 some years ago is one of those reasons that makes me need to at least tell people, hey, be careful with what you're putting in your body, because
learn from someone else's mistake. Yeah.
Know what you're putting in your body. I'm not against, the consumption. I'm not, I am against erratic behavior. I'm against like a couple of those things, right? Teach your own, act smart, act right, do your thing. Don't make me involved or anything, don't involve my family or anything like that. But I'm very much for personal sovereignty. Mm. I want to alert people or allow people to know the information that's there. I also don't feel like it's my obligation just to like hold this information and like not spread the awareness. You know what I mean? Because if I do that, I feel like, I almost feel like I'm contributing to a different problem. You know what I mean? And maybe a problem of a lack of awareness or something like that. That I would, I have the information, I have the experiences, I have, some other information. Most people don't know testing reagents exist. Most people don't know that, there's multiple random chemicals out there that could be those. So boom, man, polarity science. So we can talk about it. Scobo, he was one of those dudes that loves to talk about it. So that worked great. Abolished, he got himself into mycology. So that worked out awesome because he needed another outlet and a safe space to talk about mycology. And then Becca was able to take the use of SSRIs out of her and remove that away from her life, replace it initially with, microdosing and things like that, to now, we occasionally microdose. We go through periods where we don't dose. Like, I think we went through like almost a week without any dosing and we were fine. And, but dude, I will tell you what, man, getting through the pandemic and stuff, I felt the physical effects of anxiety for the first time in my life. And I felt it through my breathing. Right. Mm-hmm. I actually couldn't take a deep breath, and you can tell if you can't take a deep breath for a while. Oh, that was a deep breath, dude. I can almost do it on command now. It's like nothing. It's a very rewarding thing. It's a gratifying thing to be able to take a deep breath for me right now, because like I literally went through the first, I don't know, man, 3-4 months of the pandemic thinking I had some sort of fucking. I never went. I wasn't around people. I wasn't, doing anything. It was anxiety, dude. It was all anxiety related. I started microdosing, and I immediately, within like a week, started realizing, hey, my breath came back. Holy fuck, I can breathe. And I was like, because I was thinking about other shit. You know what I mean? I was distracting myself finally, and then all of a sudden, I was focusing on tasks and doing shit and being productive. and all of these other things that like my anxiety, crippling, and even prior to the pandemic, I had crippling anxiety. I was strung out on stress all the fucking time. I drink a lot of caffeine. I go through breaks where I try to like detox myself of caffeine because I just get, too stressed out sometimes. But recently and lately, I don't really feel those effects. I enjoy the effects of caffeine. I enjoy the effects of coffee and stuff like that. Good. Yeah, it's been very rewarding. Microdosing has really helped. So I don't want to push it onto people, but I like to let people know that there's options out there that are not pharmaceutical. I've seen some bad things from pharmaceuticals,
We all have, yep.
Yeah, my cousin had, some bad reactions. She had epilepsy and some stuff, was having some bad reactions to pharmaceuticals, and she's not with us anymore. Just some other stuff like that, man. I had another cousin that I lost when I was 12, and she was like 18. And she's not around anymore. She had cancer, brain cancer, and that's where I was like, well, this was around the end of the 90s. So Prop 215, I think that was the medical California one. I might be wrong with that. It might be a different number, but California was working with medical cannabis. And I was like, what's this? People with cancer. In my mind, my cousin had cancer. People in my family have died from cancer. Now people are getting helped with this illegal substance. I had never even smoked a joint, So that's what got me intrigued, man. I was like, I was in it to try to figure out, like, is this a cure for cancer? Why are people using this illegal substance for cancer? And why is it okay over there and not over here? I was super intrigued by the whole paradox that cannabis was, both legally, medically, and then as a kid when I first tried it, like spiritually, it definitely has taken me for a ride, and now it's taken me for the ride, which is fiscally, right. A lot of us are all having to make lifestyle changes, things like that, based around the normalization of the plant, which we all wanted. We all wanted the normalization of this plant. So I'm still here for the abundance of the plant. I'm still here because I still believe that I need to bring it out, continue to grow it, continue to propagate it, and do all of that. And so we do, man. Polarity science. We talk about cannabis. Talk about the medicines and food too. We talk about the gut biome, the health. There's serotonin in the gut. Probably more serotonin in the gut than in the brain. And if you're talking about feeding your serotonin system, you should food is they say, let food be thy medicine. And it's so true of a fucking sentence that can be said, man, because that you're literally dealing with your happiness when you put shit in your stomach, And a lot of us focus on gratifying flavors. I love sweets. I love a lot of things to gratify my palate. But sometimes you gotta eat some chalky old mushrooms or something like that.
Eat your vegetables,
Your vegetables, your fibers, and and we eat meat. We are meat eaters. We get a little funny on the late sesh sometimes, and I apologize to vegans and stuff like that, because we get a little like offhand, talking about animals and stuff, because I do consume meat and things like that. But those are all jokes. When we talk about like consuming when we're talking about like the shit in our backyard and like stuff like that, we're not eating squirrels and stuff like that. That's for sure. Deer
is delicious, though.
I will eat wild game of like deer and stuff like that, and ethically, sustainably sourced. We're really trying to change as much of our like protein habits as possible, and that includes like if we have to go without protein, things like that. Becca's eating a little bit more fish lately. We're trying to switch over to that because that's something we can actually grow.
Right.
We're looking into like growing tilapia, and there's actually a couple of other species of fish you can grow that very, very short lifespan, like upwards of 60 days. It's there's a synchronicity there where I've been learning that, cannabis flowers in like a 60-day time frame. You also have, meat chickens and things like that run in about a 60-day time frame. You have, protein fish. There are a plethora of vegetables. Most vegetables, root, radishes and a lot of leafy greens, the ones that are the best for you and like to sustain, longevity and heart health and stuff like that, 60-day harvest times. Some with the 60 to 90-day harvest time, it just seems, maybe it's just something that we've adapted to. There's something that we've utilized as far as agriculture and created and adapting in agriculture in that respect. But I like to include all of those things in our, biodiverse thing, because that's what we get. We get a couple plots of like 60 good days in summertime. You know what I mean? We get a good, two sections of those, so, you can even do it with cannabis. You can pull tarps and get yourself 2 crops, which is something that we're trying to look into getting probably next season. We'll start tarping our cannabis early and try to get two crops instead of 1, doing some things like that. And going to really focus on organic. But anyway, man, yeah, that's
everything Red Setter Farm. I mean, that's a lot. That's not just one little small facet,
That was just officially everything.
That's the best part of it, though. It's out there for the world to see. When I came toting for that question, I wanted the fucking answer, and I got it. I'm not gonna lie to you. Okay, I got no question in my mind. Y'all doing badass things. From Michigan Bros Grow Show to Polarity Science. It's literally from the ground up with y'all. Everything, you're closing loops, man. You're trying to be sustainable. I mean, fuck that carbon. It's just.
Right, we're attempting.
I love it. It's everything that you could possibly want, stemming from cannabis in Michigan. If there was
all of that, man.
I wish I could do it. I mean, I've got a few things I could work on, but listen, I will get there. I am one man. You know what I'm saying? Doing one good thing. But listen. RedSetterFarms, go check them out at Red Setter Farms on Instagram. If you don't catch them on the fucking late sesh or in the Michigan Bros Grow Show, you're missing out. Polarity Science is an absolute fucking must. Huge shout out to all the people involved in those things. Becca, Red, I can't begin to thank you enough, A, for what you do for Michigan and the cannabis caregivers, but B, for coming on the show. And letting us know what it is once and for all, how to define Red Setter Farms. I think that what you do is absolutely fucking gorgeous, and I commend you.
You are very welcome, dude.
Thank you.
I want to thank you. I want to thank the cannabis community. Mm-hmm. I want to thank people that are just, thinking about cannabis and all of that stuff or whatever. I want to thank people that definitely changed their mind about cannabis, because you guys are definitely out there listening to this, because it perpetuates this plant. Mm-hmm. And when I'm not here, right, I'm going to go beyond my life. I want this plant to continue to be perpetuated to people.
That's the point.
It's the thing. You know what I mean? This is, the plant the tree isn't even for the shade. I'm not even going to get to sit under that. That's for the next next generation. You know what I mean? That's why we're building this garden and putting all this infrastructure. It's not even fucking for us. It's for the next, because this land's going to be that much more fertile in 10 years, assuming that they take care of it. And that's our goal, man. That's the big thing. I thank you for kind words, man. I mean, all we're doing is we're just trying to live, dude. We're just literally just trying to live. Did the 9-to-5 thing for a really
they don't work. Yeah.
And it's, my lifestyle, because I still want to perpetuate this plant. And I want to perpetuate other plants too. I want to perpetuate food. You know what I mean? I think food's so fucking important, man. Mm-hmm. The amount of people that know how to actually grow food or even know where food comes from, it's dwindling. And like I just said, man, it's our happiness. Mm-hmm. And sometimes other people's happiness affects my happiness, and it's a thing. So I love to talk about it, man. And thank you so much for having me on and giving all of your viewers, listeners, everybody a beautiful, beautiful ear concussion this
Your
evening
concussion.
because, yeah, dude, I sometimes have a lot to say, and I really appreciate you letting me flap my lips for it.
You know, dude,
Thank you.
you're welcome, man. And having a lot to say proves that you're doing a lot. Okay. And for that, dude, that's admirable. You know, and it can't come from me. It's got to come from you. You know, you're the fucking one doing it. You know, might as well get out there and tell the people. But
I think Becca, she's a huge driving.
oh, we already know who the boss is.
Yes. Yeah, dude. She had a paintbrush in her hands for like 8 hours today, dude. Like she grinds just as hard, if not harder than me, because there's some times where I'm stuck, man. I'm stuck. Paralysis by analysis. I'm chiefing. She's cleaning. You know what I mean? And I might look like I'm working, but I'm sitting here dwelling and thinking. To me, I'm working. You know what I mean? But I'm not doing much. You know what I mean? So yeah, dude, it's her, man. A lot of it's her. She kicks ass, dude. She gets me on my feet and going and motivated, man. So yeah. Thanks for
There it is.
time, dude. Your time, man. Most important.
Absolutely. Well, my tokers, my jokers, and smokers, we're going to catch y'all on the flip. Red, Becca, appreciate you again. Thanks for coming on, y'all. We'll see you on the flip. Peace.